Woman finds something shocking in the safe she inherited from her great aunt. Safes are always mysterious things, especially when we discover them for the first time. That was the case of a German woman who found in her great aunt's house a safe in rough shape, and so rusty that made her curious, but she didn't know what could be inside of it. All she guessed was that it must be something very valuable. The woman's great aunt had fled Russia and settled in Hamburg in the 1940s, the same period where European people did their best to emigrate in order to avoid persecution. And apparently, this woman's aunt thought she could have saved herself, but in fact, she couldn't. She was lucky because she found the key, because the metallic rusty box was securely locked. She even thought it's impossible to open it. Even though the niece had the key that would give her access to the box, she was a little skeptical that it wouldn't work at all. The box was not in immaculate condition, and no one was sure that the key would ever still work. But to know, she had to try it. Just like that, and the safe was open. The first thing she found inside the safe was an empty, shallow tray that made her think that it might turn out to be a total bust, but it was not the only thing in there. There were other interesting things inside. While the first of the box had been totally empty, that certainly was not the case for the box's other layers, nooks, and crannies. As the niece explored the contents of the safe, she was amazed by her discovery. It was full of books, letters, and pictures. It seemed like the great aunt was keeping her memories and her valuable things in that safe because her niece found pictures of her aunt's relatives, but she didn't recognize any of them. She also found a lot of books and a copy of Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. She was truly shocked by all this discovery. While Hitler's book, written during his time in prison, is not exactly a rare item, it sent chills down this woman's spine to see a copy that had been printed during Hitler's reign. She did some researching, and she found that this copy was published in 1943. Even though the book was published in a time of war and poverty, when it wasn't easy to sell or to insure a book, but that book could be worth about $350. She found another old novel, Rob Roy, by Sir Walter Scott. This classic novel was dog-eared and clearly had been very well loved by the person who had first bought it. It was so old that the niece felt like she had traveled back in time. Among the book collection that she found, Lipsing, an old German book that was published in 1846, long time before Hitler's book was printed, that book touched her so much, she started to imagine her great aunt traveling around Europe with it. An old copy of Lady and the Tramp was also inside the box. While most people think of this as being a classic Disney film, it was also a novel for children before it was adapted into a screenplay. This copy was tied to the film's release based on the cover images. The woman wondered of which of her family members bought this book that was published in 1953, but no one knows. She just kept thinking. Besides the books, she also found pictures, and she believed that she recognized her grandmother as a child, even though it was hard to recognize people from the past in the era of no digital records, but only war. While this 1950 picture shows her grandfather riding a motorcycle, and we can clearly see the disconnection between the cows there and the man riding a motorcycle. He might be a rich man. There were pictures of boys who were apparently part of the Hitler Youth movement. Knowing what we do now about Nazi Germany, these two boys may have seen some horrific things. Membership in the Hitler Youth movement was mandatory for children at the time. Even postcards were all about war. This one, for example, is from 1916, that shows a soldier kissing his wife before going to serve his country. Even that it's about war, but also it was the time of simplicity. This one, from 1941, and has a Nazi government stamp, people who lived their lives being constantly watched. This stamp wasn't just part of the mail process, but it was a Nazi reminder that people were always watched. This one too, a 1916 postcard that seems more like a cover of an old movie. They all have war concepts, but this one has the purpose of inspiring people to join as soldiers and nurses during World War I. While this one represents a German destroyed house, and that's what was written in the caption, a house destroyed by the enemy, so it's information they were using this way because they had no TV, just newspapers and some limited access to the radio. But the most unexpected strange thing is that she found Nivea cream in the box. While these containers are in excellent condition, it's probably a terrible idea to open those World War II surviving Nivea cream. The last thing was a photo of the Kaiser's heir, and such things were in every German house during that period of World War I. Such things are truly valuable. They survived the miserable events to make a great time capsule. This woman isn't the only relative who has ever inherited a box of items with ties to the Second World War. Another one discovered in an attic in Maryland, and the police did their best to help return the items to the family they belonged to. Another case of World War items of a suitcase they found, and the police collected a lot of information to find out that it belonged to Armando Custodio, born in 1908, and he immigrated to the U.S. and served the Navy during the Second World War. The police wanted to find any one of his relatives, that they certainly would hold on to this suitcase full of memories like the ones the German woman found in her great-aunt's safe, because they represent a fascinating glimpse into their ancestors' life so long ago.